calling our meeting of December 8th to order, please. Would you all please stand? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All those who try phones, I would ask you to turn them on vibrate, please. Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Clark. Here. Mr. Hopkins. Here. Mr. Groves. Here. Mrs. Powell.
Here.
Mrs. Conley.
Here.
Mr. Hall. Here. Mrs. Nixon is absent this evening.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a motion to excuse Mrs. Nixon? She has left for the funeral of her father-in-law.
Second. We move the second to excuse Ms. Nixon from this meeting. Any discussion?
You wish her well?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed sign no. Motion carries. Moving on to public comment at this time. The council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public comment and public hearing portion of this agenda. However, council policy is to hear the public comment, not to act on the public comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If after communication with the city manager, no resolution is reached, the concerns will be elevated to the mayor and then eventually to the council for action. Those citizens wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens will be allowed to address the council. For those wishing to speak, please state your name and address for the record. At this time, is there any individuals wishing to address the council on agenda or non-agenda items?
My name is Scott.
Pardon?
My name is Scott B. I live at 369 Common. I mentioned to
City manager,
thank you, Mr. Bowman, about changing the news siren to once a month instead of once a day. I was maintenance for about 3 years at the Springs Mobile Estates, and people that moved in, when they heard that at noon, as they moved in, they panicked, and I said, I don't know why they do it. It's, people that I wasn't there with. I think once a month is sufficient, I know they have to test and stuff like that. I understand that, but if we could move to once a month, first Friday or Saturday, whatever it is, instead of once a day, I think it would be great. I live in a trailer park still, and I can't even hear my TV over the place, because I'm closer. I know there's a lot of people that are closer than I am, so, but that's all I have. I guess I think once a month is every Saturday. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Is there any other person wishing to address the council at this time? Come on, Grant, move on. Step up.
Is that your new nickname?
long story.
Yeah.
Good evening, my name is Kurt Maybe. I'm here with the CVDT. Haven't been around for a little bit, so I wanted to give you guys some updates. We're working on our amphitheater as we have it. This design is done. We're working on the cost and how what we're going to do. We got so we're kind of like tearing it apart with our experts right now. We're also working on the clock tower, and we had a meeting with the American Legion the other day. It was a very good meeting with them. We were dealing with Verdun out of Ohio, And a local company out of Grand Rapids got a hold of us and said, well, we would like to have an opportunity to do this. And so it was that was a very productive meeting also. They said apples to apples type of thing. They could come in a third less cost than what we're doing is coming in. So, and that's going to go down also. We're working with the DEQ. Lovely government agencies are just lots and lots of fun. But however, as we're looking at it, we're looking at not just the scope of our projects, but Cedar Springs as a whole. One of the things mathematics is showing that we have to be careful as far as the floodways and floodplains, and even though I tell them, and Dean Stout has offered to tell them how many that the 100-year floodplain really isn't at. He's been around just about that long, he says, and he can tell them exactly where it's at. But we might have to take a look at eventually the White Pine Trail Bridge, or the old railroad trestle there. It was built in 1887 or something like that, I think is what we were told. But that might have to come out just for the betterment of Cedar Springs. But that would be something we'll work together with the city and the DEQ on, all that kind of good stuff. DEQ honestly was very, very helpful the other day. We met with them, talked about some grants and some ways that we might be able to make this happen. Working with Scott Slavens from the DNR, who's in charge of the White Pine Trail, very nice young man also. It's just enjoyable, the people that we are partnering up with to help make Cedar Springs better. Let's see here. Yes, we received a gift the other day. Bill Bolthouse from Bolthouse Farms here out east of Cedar Springs donated to the CBDT 195 acres. We have already got 4 people interested in buying that from us. It's a beautiful piece of property. I was out there the other day looking for spots to fish for trout. And but we really appreciate Bolthouse Farms. If you don't know, they've been members of the community for years and years and years. And that aspect of things, to bring that into us, just brings in a chunk of change. We have to hold it for 3 years, but however, the folks that are interested in buying it are interested in buying it, and we're going to work our way through legal aspect, because if we sell it, tax would come back on the bill, and we got to make sure we're always doing the right things for the people in Cedar Springs. So, but anyways, that's quite a donation to us on our side of it. Also, the other aspect of things that I'm really enjoying about the library going up is the local craftsmen that we have involved. And I've been getting feedback, just kind of off the cuff, of people saying, well, that's really nice how many local craftsmen are working on that facility. And it is a joy, and that credit all goes to Dwayne McIntyre. He's the one that really pushed to make sure we have locals doing that. The block and brickwork right now is being done by the Emery boys. Their dad was a graduate of Cedar Springs. They're working with Roy and me in Coble. So we got the oldest brick McLair probably in the city of Cedar Springs, working with probably some of the youngest ones in Cedar Springs. But actually, Lean and Roy are the ones that recommended these 2 young men to us. So they do fantastic work. But anyways, we're going to be putting articles in the paper highlighting our locals that are working with us. And then speak of that also, not only do we have locals, but High Grade has stepped up and given us quite a discount on concrete, like something like between 42%. TTI has given us a discount on materials. Belden Black has given a discount to the library. And Northwest Kent Mechanical has reduced their price and is going to reduce it some more, I'm told. So it's really nice to watch folks stepping up, and I see it's just picking up speed more and more as we're not slowing down.
Maybe I think we're approaching our 4-minute mark.
I saw a motion. I was going to ignore it. I thought he was waving at me over there. Anyways, are there any questions for me?
Thank you very much for your...
Thank you for all your support, guys. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you, Kirby. Looks wonderful.
Any other persons wishing to address the council at this time? Seeing none.
Dan Clark, 18 Open Grant. Thank you, Jerry.
Mr. Mayor.
Piggybacking on what Kurt had to say, I've been working with the CBDT Capital Campaign Committee for the last several months on especially the project for the boardwalks along the creek and the bridges. And one of the things that came up was a video that we felt would be an excellent fundraising item. And so we have completed that, and we have with us tonight one of our actresses. I'm sorry, say again?
Celebrity.
Celebrity, star celebrity, yes. Our own Marge Clark. who is playing the role of grandmother very appropriately. And then we have a couple of folks that are not part of our community, voted for it, and a young gentleman, father from... What's that last name again?
Swinehart.
Okay. I didn't know the man, but he played the father figure, and so you're going to see them in just a moment. Did we have any luck with the sound? No luck?
Yeah, so I hate to be the bad guy, but apparently we've run into some computer problems that Mr. Stressman is currently trying to fix.
Well, we thought we would have sound. We thought we had all of our ducks in a row, but unfortunately it doesn't look
So
like.
we're trying.
Video will be fine.
And
We're going to see the video. And we have our producer, video maker, Dwayne Weed, with us this evening. He stopped by. He's going to have to leave early, but it was a joy working with him, and he was very gracious in the way he was helping us financially as well. And, of course, all of the actors and actresses were doing their work gratis. So, here comes the video. Sound.
And again, I'll say I'm sorry, but Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Again, it appears we have some computer issues, so maybe what we should do is wait until Mr. Stressman is ready. He will then wildly wave at us, and then we can show the video at that point.
What's on my fingers?
Okay.
So I apologize. I'll be the bad guy this time. We've had a lot of computer problems this week. As you can see on the screen, we are now waiting for Windows to let us know when it would be appropriate to start.
We want to be out of here by 7.
So you cannot blame me for missing the 7:30 deadline.
Jerry said I've been up there 4 minutes. I remember there's 3. You're missing.
All right, until we get our technical problems resolved, we want to move along.
Unless there's other people who'd like to speak as part of the public.
Really fast.
Really fast. Just to piggyback on everybody else that's come before, is just to again thank everybody, and we pass out some brochures, but the community building development team's purpose always has been and always will be, is truly to just support existing organizations, to support the council, to support the library board, to support the firemen, to support our veterans. We had a wonderful meeting with them. Parks and Rec, all the Chamber of Commerce, DDA. It really, truly always has been and will continue to be just to support the existing community organizations, our policemen. I hope I didn't forget anybody that's here tonight being represented, but and just we need to know. I know Mike's really worked hard on this, reminding us of all that as well. So anyway, everybody just comes together and does a little bit of everything. It's really going well. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Good effort. Okay, we'll move on. We have a public hearing for Cedar Springs Manufacturing with request for industrial facilities tax exemption for $1,200,000 real property. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to open a public hearing for Cedar Springs Manufacturing requests for industrial facility tax exemption for $1.2 million in real property and $1,000 in personal.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to say some things if I could before proceed. So I was approached before this meeting to kind of discuss this, and I thought I should clarify what we're actually talking about. So the request was for $1.2 million real property and $1 million personal property. That is not the amount of money the city is giving out in taxes. That is the taxable value. Additionally, the personal property is not eligible for this treatment anyways. It just happened to be part of the request, so I named it as such. So really, we're talking about $1.2 million real property.
So, Mr. Manager, would you like me to change the motion I'm hearing?
That was their request, and this is just a discussion item this month anyways.
Okay.
So I guess for purposes of public hearing, it doesn't really matter. But when you boil it all down, we're talking about, I think, $4,500, not the $1 million that it says in the motion. I just want the public to be aware of that. We're not talking about some gob of money.
It's an amount of money the city can use to promote business growth. Under that public hearing.
Thank you. Any other discussion? No.
Just
Go into
historically,
public-
I was
You
just,
need to go into public hearing, then you can comment.
oh,
Second? You had a good move?
I made the
Second,
motion.
didn't
I thought Terry seconded.
you?
Yeah, you did.
I thought you did.
I
Okay.
thought we were in discussion.
Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor of opening a public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, sign no. We're in a public hearing. Anyone from the public wish to speak to this? Hearing none. Mr. Romack, you want to address anything?
No,
We go to council?
the council will have an option to discuss this as part of their discussion items.
Right.
Like I said before, CS Manufacturing was very early on this, so I don't think this would even be eligible until next year anyways. So we talked about the possible Corona IFT guidelines we could adopt, but those are items for discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Clark? I would just, we're going to discuss it a little bit later, but okay. If it says so, I really don't need to say anything now. Thank you. Ms. Paul?
The personal property tax, I thought that we had eliminated the personal property tax, so that's not even part of this process.
No.
Under
Okay.
80,000.
We don't have
Under
any,
80,000.
right, no, we don't have anything on that, that's all state and the county. We get none.
All right.
Ms. Conlon?
I just wanted to say, having done this previously, as someone who's been on council for a while, that, because we did it for CS Manufacturing, and it's a very useful tool to help create jobs. You tie it directly to this expansion of the bricks and mortar in your community. And I know historically you found it to be useful. So that's kind of what it is that's happening.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rhodes?
I'm for it. There's one thing that I'd like to see, and I know it can't be held to this, but I would always be curious as to how many local people would become employed by a situation like this, and I know you can't be restricted to that, because a lot of times the talent pool may not fit into the positions that need to be open. So, if possible, I'd like to see them have us kind of give some feedback somewhere along the line, and give us some idea of what we're doing to actually, bring employees into the city, so.
Mr. Hunt?
I really don't have anything to add.
Just to answer some of your question, there were numbers of employment jobs that would be secured in this facility, whether they would hire local all possible.
And just to follow up on that, remember that when a job, even if the person doesn't live here, if they live in Rockford or Grand Rapids, they eat lunch here. They spend money because they're coming here.
Okay. Ms. Womack, do you have anything to add?
No, not this time.
Okay, first time I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second? Then move to second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, sign no. Motion carried, public hearing closed. Moving on to item 5, adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Any discussion? Have a roll call vote. Mr. Clark? Yes. Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. All votes yes, motion carries. Moving on to item 6, the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Okay, the consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 17th. Checks paid, numbers
Would you like me to read that, Mr. Mayor?
39361, 39444, totaling $100,696.93. The January accounts payables checks numbers 93445 through 39450, totaling
$2,767.65. Electronic transfers totaling $2,464.74, with a total of all transfers of $105,929.32. Approval of disbursement of $5,000 to the Cedar Springs Parks and Rec, and also disbursement of the Evelyn Clausen Fund to the Cedar Springs Ministerial Association for the needy families within the Cedar Springs city limits.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I should have read that, seeing that it's not up on the screen.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, on the minutes from the meeting, under 7L, can we word that some way so it doesn't look like I don't want kids in the park?
There was a little thing, so maybe note the changes on that, Ms. Newell. Thank you.
Consider the way you look at it, it's like, that sounds like I don't want kids in the park.
Okay, any other discussion or changes? Hearing none. Do a roll call vote. Mr. Rose?
I'm sorry, what was the response? I was thinking about the old kids in the park.
We're approving the consent
I
agenda.
approve it.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Hall votes yes. Motion carries. Consent agenda approved. Moving on to discussion item 7A1. Mr. Manager Womack, would you address?
Mr. Mayor, as we discussed previously, and as the gentleman indicated from the audience, the 12 noon tornado siren, it is the practice in other municipalities to only test these sirens once per month. In the community I live in on the east side of the state, it was, I believe, at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Yeah, I understand it's local tradition. I've not been here that long, so I'm not speaking to local tradition, and I don't know how strongly the citizens feel about that. I guess just coming from a place where they do, in fact, only test it once a month makes it a little bit more predictable to know when you're going to have to cover your ears if you live next to it. Of course, I'm always out walking my dogs when it happens. So. But this is council's prerogative. You guys have the pulse of the community. I do not. And I'd like to hear some discussion about what you think. And based on your discussion, I can see about changing that or not.
We have 5 minutes before we adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Stressman, how are we doing over there?
We're at 95%.
Go.
How did we get from the community?
There's a number of ways we could do it. We could do a survey similar to what we're going to do with the naming of the park, or we could try to encourage people to come in and discuss what they'd like to see done. I'd love to be able to go door to door and talk to people, but it's just not in my time schedule.
Mr. Mayor, may I comment? Again, I sound like the old person on city council, but 2 city managers ago, the city manager wanted to do basically what you're saying. I think maybe even less. I can't remember the exact structure. And it was a very unpopular position.
To turn it off or leave it on?
To turn it off. People were pretty adamant about their noon whistle, as it's called. And it used to be located right next to the library, right? And it was story time with the kindergartners, and it would like vibrate the room. I remember.
On their visits to when it was going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, I know. And I remember that, and then we got a grant to move where the siren, because they actually took it away, and then people were very upset. We had a lot of discussion about people coming and saying we got a new whistle back. Is there a way to turn the volume down?
No.
No?
Won't reach on it when we need it.
Well, I didn't know if we could do it for the daily thing and then turn it off.
They have it turned down for the least amount of seconds that it can go to.
If our community is down with it, I'm certainly supportive, but I can tell you historically, when it was proposed, there was a very energetic response
Okay.
to not getting rid of it.
Mr. Mayor? Yes. How about if we try it for 2 or 3 months and see what kind of a reaction we get? But we should prep it by getting articles in the paper letting people know what we're doing, so they're not like, what happened?
I would like to speak up and say there's a lot to do with tradition. Unfortunately, there's too many traditions that are dropped, and I think this is one I would like to see held on to. I personally would vote for keeping it.
Well, I know when I went to school in Palo, there's a bell. I went to school in Carson City, there's a bell. Not from the school, but in town. And when I worked in Sheridan, they had a bell. I just it came to this bell. When I worked at Myers, I've never heard the bell because he was inside all the time. It was too far away, but you get used to the bell. It's there every day at noon. I couldn't move at midnight, see if people like there. I doubt it.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question?
I know a long time standing, the siren has always blown at noon. You know, when it was torn down, there was a lot of public outcry. Where's our noon whistle? We want it back. What's the will of the council?
Is there nothing?
We're doing discussion on this one, right? We're
Yeah.
not voting?
Well, we get a straw poll for the neighbors.
I'd like it brought to the people, let them know what's going on. I personally don't care. I do know it's horrible if you were down by the fire barn when that thing went on. I can't even hardly hear it anymore, so it doesn't make any difference to me. But I'd like to go into the community and see what people think. It is pretty handy to know what it's called.
If we have a survey, yes, Mr. Council.
Well, I'm just wondering with the Veterans Clock Tower, if that's going to be making
That's
time
what
at
I was
noon,
gonna ask, if we could
If
replace
that
it
may-
with something.
replace the people that want a more everyday whistle with the bell chime instead. And then just do the,
We have a
Could
lot
there,
of
could there be a
options.
whistle? It isn't quite so,
So I guess I would
Loud.
wonder what I hear from the council, we're going to Mr. Womack,
I'd like to proceed with some kind of survey, see if we can get more public input. We'll discuss the matter with the CBDT regarding the possible switch to a chime of some kind. And we'll keep bringing this back until we have a proper solution.
yeah, they do that at university, I mean, like Michigan
Sounds
State,
good.
Grand Valley, and Carolina.
Okay, everybody's willing Mr. Womack to gather some information and move and proceed.
If I could keep going, Mr. Mayor, the Corona IFT guidelines. I found these to be a fairly good representation, I think, of how we can treat everybody fairly when they do bring us an IFT. Obviously, we'd have to change the name from Corona to Cedar
Correct.
Springs, but I think the formula itself is appropriate. And I'd like to hear your feedback right now, whether you'd like to see this presented in a format for the city at which point you could adopt it in January and apply.
I would myself, I read that over, and I think it would be very beneficial for any future requests for an IFP, and also help the persons on that board of a guideline. I know we had some in the past, but we got cool, our videos on.
We have a video.
Having said that, I would like to see this and bring it back to us in the future. Call like action.
Mr. Mayor, could we finish this item and then we will watch the video?
Correct. Go ahead. Proceed. Any other, anybody like that
I
idea?
think it sounds excellent, I just wanted to give Dan Clark some props for finding this and doing the homework, and the policy lady is super excited to have her own policy. I don't know what it says, but I get excited about
In that
policy.
case, Mr. Mayor, I will present it to you in January in a more finalized form.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Mr. Mayor, at this time, I would ask that we be able to, change speed and watch the video that was originally supposed to be watched during the public comment section.
Yes.
And we'll just take a brief break.
Did I tell you about our new beautiful library in Cedar Springs?
Only 1,000,000 times. You said that 20 years ago, people had a vision for a new library.
You're right. You were listening. I'm so proud of you.
Why do we always talk about that?
Because when the vision is shared by the whole community, everyone can help, and wonderful things can happen.
Let me show you something else. Ta-da! This is our new vision for Cedar Springs.
Oh, I see is trees and grass and a creek.
Let me show you something. Over there is going to be an amphitheater where you can hear live music and go to shows.
And a boardwalk along the creek, and open space where we can have picnics and adventures, and we can walk, and we can hike, and we can bike. And
You're going to do all of that?
how about myself? But I'm going to do my part.
And so am I. That's a good thing about having a vision. There are a lot of wonderful people who grew up in this area, and they're all going to want to help share in creating a wonderful space.
And they'll tell their children about it.
And their grandchildren. People of the past have given to us, and the library vision has become a reality.
You can be part of the future. Donate toward the amphitheater and boardwalk to ensure the legacy continues.
This is very nice.
I didn't know you could fly.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't know if we want to take public comments this time regarding the video.
I think it'd be appropriate. Any person wishing to address that video.
It was great. Who wrote that script? You did? Thank you.
One of my gals, my creative director, Kathy Merchant, from the Shepherd area, is the one that wrote it. And then our actors kind of took it and made it their own.
He's an old hand at acting from the community players.
Well, if we're dealing with the past, I will give her an A+. She was also a very good teacher. She deserves an A+.
She just had her 90th birthday.
Yes. Thank you all, especially you, Mark. You weren't shaking your finger at anybody like you always did to me at Rotary.
Yeah.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you, Marge.
for putting in that effort. So, thank you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I look forward to seeing that video again and again in the future. I think it'll be good to show off the city and the heart of Cedar Springs development we have going on in the city.
Absolutely.
And it will soon be available to share.
Do we have a release time yet, Kurt, exactly? Was it January? I know it is. I believe we're shooting for January. We're waiting for some donation,
A PayPal button.
PayPal button to be put into the CBD website so that people can make their donations. Have a link, directly go to that and make a donation if they want. So,
Is there a target amount?
I don't believe so. I haven't heard that.
It's also part of the DNR grant that we're on after also, which is $300,000.
Oh, you mean as far as the total collection?
Right. Like, is there a target we're shooting to get to meet the grant?
Yes.
Okay.
If we get the grant.
This is good information out that the city can use on their site, and we can use on our site. You know, it's a small pond, so it's nice to put it up.
Thank you all. Thank you all. And if you'd like to leave down this part, that's fine. Okay,
Mr. Mayor, if I could proceed.
I made a great thing.
So, Mr. Mayor, the next item on our discussion list is the Cedar Springs Manufacturing IFT that we discussed previously. We did put this in front of the IFT board, and there was discussion about what we could proceed to do. Unfortunately, I think at that time we weren't fully informed.
correct.
They were obviously in favor of giving an IFT, we just weren't sure about the amount or the length of time. I think what we should do is hold off any action unless CS Manufacturing is strenuous in their objections. I take it to January, at which time we should be able to apply those guidelines, if we so choose. But I just want to let you guys know that it's coming, and we'll see it again in January.
Sounds good, great.
Thank you for that.
Great information.
7D, the Martin Luther King holiday, similar to what we did for Veterans Day, it allows staff to catch up on work, organize, and clean City Hall. So I will post that unless council has an objection, and we will spruce this place up. Also, for December 22nd, I'd like to close City Hall a couple hours early so that city staff might be able to make merry and enjoy the holiday before going on break.
Anyone have a problem with that?
I actually encourage it.
I
I
can donate
encourage it
cake.
also. Proceed with that.
Thank you.
Item E.
Item E, Mr. Knapp's resignation. Ms. Powell was supposed to contact him, which I guess she has, but he has not responded. We don't technically have to wait for his resignation letter. The mayor can, I guess, unappoint him from the board, and we can then reappoint somebody. But I don't have anybody presently today ready to go, so if January comes and we do not still have his letter at that point, I would ask you to unappoint him from the board, and we will appoint somebody new.
I think that's appropriate.
7F, Sherry Foster's resignation. So this was a bit of a sticky wicket for us. So she did tender her resignation to the Planning Commission Board, which was a bit of a formality. It's obviously up to this board whether she continues to serve or not. Mr. Aventini, the city planner, indicated to me that state law permits up to 2 individuals who do not live in the city to serve on the Planning Commission. Now, there's obviously some pros and cons to allowing that. Ms. Foster is a valued member of the Planning Commission. She's popular, she's smart, she's outspoken. But I would ask this council to not consider Ms. Foster so much as the position itself. If you do allow her to serve, and she's not a member of the jurisdiction, that then opens the floodgates to anybody from anywhere to serve on it. And I'm not sure this council wants to do that. There are certain things that can be said about having skin in the game, and that if you live in the jurisdiction, you are more willing to look out for the jurisdiction. So I'm not going to take a position on this. I'd like to hear the council have their say, and then I guess we can proceed whether we want to permit outside people to serve on Planning Commission or not. But I have included a potential motion at the bottom if somebody would like to make it. If there is no motion, she will automatically be removed from the Planning Commission, and then there will be an open seat, at which point we can then proceed to put somebody in that seat.
My opinion on this, I think we ought to wait and get some more clarity on that as far as where we actually stand and what we can do and what we cannot do. I guess having said that.
Well, Mr. Hall, I did do the research on this. I did actually look at the law. And the law says the city council shall set a guideline for whether they have that as a city goal to permit outside people to serve on their planning commission or not. So it is within this council's purview to make that decision today if it so chooses. The question really is one of philosophy and whether this council wants to allow that based on the planning commission members and whether they will have this city's best interest at heart. So I personally don't think we need any additional clarification, but I am open to any questions that I might be able to answer for the council.
You used the word goal, that the statement would be like, we want it. It made me feel like I am going to say, I want somebody from outside. Was that your intent?
No.
Is it more like we can if
You
we
would permit.
We would permit. Okay, very good.
Although I would advocate it sets precedent.
Well, it can. I think that we can use it as we want. Or whoever the mayor is can use it as he wants to pull somebody in when necessary. And I spoke with Manager Womack about the possibility of, in this particular case, speaking with Sherry about maybe serving at least until we could get somebody to replace.
We have people.
No.
And so I don't know if that's appropriate or not, though. I know we need to have the philosophy set before we're able to do that, but
If you want to speak practically, we do have a number of individuals who are interested in serving on the planning commission, specifically one person who would take this seat on, not automatically, immediately if we so chose. So having people on the commission is not the question. It's whether we want to allow outside individuals to serve as a philosophy of the council.
I know. And my brain is still around getting by this little bottleneck right now, so.
Correct.
I think as a philosophy, though, I'm not for it.
We have not received a letter of intent for any persons to go on the planning commission as of yet, at least I'm aware of.
I've had oral discussions with individuals.
Yes, we've had discussions.
In fact, I think I did receive one today. I'm not sure if it made it to your packet.
Okay.
But I do believe I have one from the individual in question that would take the seat if it was vacated.
I know, as a side note on that, Mr. Hopkins has requested that he would give up his seat because of his business, and his time factor. So, other than that, but it's something to think about. I don't really want to rush into it, but by no means rubber stamp this.
The planning commission can still function with one less
Correct.
member.
Yes, we can. And Mr. Hopkins, he would stay on, I hope.
No, I know my seat's up here, for the 2017 term.
No, it's not.
Yes, unfortunately, you are scheduled to go all the way through 2017 and be done in 18.
Yes.
So your hopes of getting out of it are dead.
You put them up to this card?
That's where I go.
Just about.
Mr. Mayor, or are we going down the line?
I didn't know if anyone else wanted to make a statement.
I personally would prefer that we have somebody from our own city, and then they would be not just involved in the planning commission, but other aspects of our community. But if we absolutely had to have somebody, I'd like to be able to, that we didn't have anybody in line to take a seat, and they say they moved to Sand Lake or Greenville or whatever, and they were still willing to serve, I would say yes until we found somebody local, but I think locals are way to go.
I have a very strong opinion on this. I really do not feel that we should put someone who doesn't live here, doesn't work here, doesn't have their kids go to school here, on a board making decisions about what we do here. I mean, that turns skin in the game. You need to pay taxes here, drive the streets here, use the park here, if you're going to have a vote in how we do it. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
It's 5 cents. That's my feeling.
I won't always say that I agree with her 100%, okay, but in this case I do.
Mr. Hopkins.
Well, my opinion is, as far as having somebody that doesn't have any stake in the game, there's a lot of people who have stake in this community, but they can't run on a board because they don't live in this city limits. There's a lot of business owners that they get frustrated. They have no say because they come here, they work here all day long, but not day's end, they have not a vote.
Just Mr. Hopkins, if I could follow up on that, I believe Ms. Conley's contention that if you had a business that she would consider it.
If you own a business here,
Yeah.
you got skin in the game.
But if I can finish,
Go ahead, proceed.
as far as, he said not to look at being Sherry Foster. You have to look at it. She has been here for a while, so it's not like she doesn't care about this community or not.
I think Sherry Foster is
One at a time.
If I can finish, I didn't interrupt anybody else,
Yes,
if I can
you're
finish mine. We should, look at it as an individual thing, if we got plenty of people wanting to jump on, be on the planning commission, fine, don't have anybody from outside our city limits to be a part of it. But if we got somebody that's willing to still spend their time and do their due diligence as well as she did while she lived here, until we did find somebody that was a city resident, then I think we should still look at that. That's just my personal opinion.
And what I'm hearing from everyone in the council, and correct from Mr. Womack, is that we want to stay status quo.
That's what it sounds like to me also, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
If that's the case, I guess you are in a position right now, if you would like to accept her resignation letter. She will then be off the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, and then we could then proceed to appoint somebody at the next meeting.
Correct. down the path we will have.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to accept Ms. Sherry Foster's resignation letter?
We have that in communication, but we can do it now at this time. And I would accept Mrs. Foster's resignation from the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals effective tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, can I just say thank you to Ms. Foster? She has been a very valuable and
By all means,
dedicated part of the Planning Commission.
we can
And,
pass, so.
and my position on this has nothing, is not a reflection of her as a person. I think she's done an excellent job on Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could proceed?
Yes.
The DDA tip reset, dedicated millage, and retained funds from year to year. This comes out of our DDA meeting. It's just a discussion item at this point, but the DDA, I have Mr. Sluggett working on possible language and how to proceed with that. It's all kind of technical, legal, mumbo jumbo, for lack of a better word. Whether we'd have to reset the TIP district itself, or if we would have to take the DDA out of existence and then reestablish it. It all depends on how the courts might look at it. So that's the possibility for resetting the TIP, which would then, of course, allow them to capture TIP money moving forward. The dedicated millage, that's going to be a bit of a chess game, trying to figure out when we want to actually put that in front of the voters and how long and for what amount. And then the retention of funds year to year, that's something I'll probably bring in front of you guys next time as a motion or a resolution. Currently, the city council donates, I think it's $1,500 per year to the DDA because they capture no money. It's my understanding also that they spend about half that money on flowers and planter boxes, so they really do not have the source of funding to do anything of value in the city. What they have asked me is whether we would allow them to, whatever money they save from one year, to add that to their budget for the next year. I don't think there's any impediment to doing that, and at some point that just might become moot. If by next year we have a millage, and if next year we reset their DDA tip. But it's something that we want you to consider, and I'll bring that to you guys as a motion for next time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Proceed.
On the bringing it before the people for a millage, is there a time frame that we have to have a hearing? Like, could they go in August if they wanted to when there's a primary? Or does it have to be, like, is there a certain amount of time it has to come out in front of the public, or?
The main consideration is not having to hold a special election.
Sure.
So we'd want to piggyback onto another election. So we have to know when we're going to actually have an election, put something on the ballot. But also, we don't want the public to become tax weary. This is going to be a tiny millage request. It would cost the taxpayers individually next to nothing, and it would make a world of difference to the TIP district.
Sure.
But you kind of have to play the game and try to get it to the voters at the appropriate time.
Right.
For the maximum likelihood of success.
But there's no actual structure of, like, we have to have hearings, or we can just.
These are things that Mr. Slugger is working on.
Okay, that was my question.
If my memory serves me right, this tax levy that we would ask for the DDA would only be on the businesses.
It would only be on the TIP district.
Correct. And that would be based on the business.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I recollect. But,
We would lose minimal, but yet again, we would beautify and
yeah.
businesses, so.
I should clarify, it's not strictly on businesses. It's on anything located within the business district. So if there is a house that's a holdover from a previous zoning era,
yes.
it would affect that as well, but there's just not that many residential areas.
Yeah.
I think the business district would be from 1st to 2nd Street from North Main down 18 Mile approximate to 17 Mile. So that,
I think there's like one house in there.
I should state that DDA did form a subcommittee to look at the map, and they would present it to the DDA as a whole at the next meeting.
Correct.
This is a slow process, and we'll get the information correct.
Thank you. That's
And for clarification on that, you want to explain for anybody watching this that they're not going to be taxed more on their.
Sure. So the TIP district is not an additional tax. What happens is you set the base level for what the business or the house is worth. And then once that property value starts increasing, which is normally a result of what the DDA does, it's that money that's above the base level that is then redirected to the DDA. They're paying no additional tax.
Right.
It's being redirected from the city to the DDA.
From the general fund.
Correct.
Correct. I just wanted the public to know
For
that.
businesses, for downtown development.
Sure.
When their property value goes up, that percentage goes to the DDA versus to the city coffers. Clear as mud.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Proceeded.
The Yankee Zephyr Racing Winter Festival, snowmobile racing. We do have an individual from that organization. Would you like to speak this time about that? Briefly.
Jimmy McHugh, Yankee Zephyr Racing Promotions, 13401 Olin Lakes Drive, Sparta, Michigan. I'm actually living between Cedar Springs and Kansas City. This is on the west side of my island, so I have address.
I didn't know you were that local. Because I know you did this, like, everywhere.
We are all over. We used to have a track in Canada too, but now we're not over there anymore. So we do 6 different events here in Michigan. And the Michigan Winter Fest is one of them that we're doing in Cedar Springs, Michigan, on February 17th and 18th.
On your event here, you've expanded it greatly from
We've
last
added-
year?
Yeah. We have been just running snowmobile drag racing. There is a big event that we put together in October in Hastings, Michigan, where all we were doing is just drag racing, okay? You can only do that for so long before it gets boring. The spectator that comes there is seeing the same exact thing over and over again. Lights flash, clock starts, clock stops, they come back. So what we did, and okay, let's face it, even though I'm in the drag racing business, it's boring sometimes. So one of the things we did to try to spice up the show, make people feel better for buying a ticket to come to the show, I put lawnmower racing in. Holy cow, can you sell tickets to lawnmower racing? Yes. So we now had drag racing. Yes, out in Sparta. There was a huge lawnmower race in Sparta.
I don't mean to laugh. It sounds fabulous.
It's a bunch of rednecks on a go-kart with a deck underneath it.
You said that, I didn't.
Yeah, and they're a great bunch of guys. They all get along, and they play fair, and the crowd loves them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they got their fire suits on and everything. They pretend they're Dale Earnhardt.
A lawnmower.
So about 3 years after that, we put in another thing known as Terracross, which is the side-by-sides and the quads on a dirt bike track. Well, at this facility, which is about the same size as what we're playing on right now, in Hastings, Michigan, it was 167 acres that had this really great gravel pit way, way back in the corner. Instant racetrack. We went out there with a bulldozer and we made a racetrack in about, I don't know, day and a half. We pushed up a bunch of dirt in this gravel pit that they were digging dirt out of anyways. And so we put this Terracross thing in it. Once again, a great big hit. So we have to look at each one of these shows that we're doing. How can we keep this as an interesting thing so that your average male, 18 to 55 years old, that's our target audience that we're looking for, comes out and actually wants to see the show in your town. So what we've done is we've added the snowcross aspect of it, which, if anybody doesn't understand what snowcross is, dirt bikes with snowmobiles, that's all it is. It's a dirt bike track, that's a much, much smaller area. We're also going to put in what we call the cross-country course. It is, but it is not a cross-country course. The cross-country type of racing is where that guy is sitting on a snowmobile and they go. He comes back about 4.5 hours later. Oh, you win. Guess what? The crowd doesn't want to watch that. So what we have done, not you, but what we have done is if anybody's familiar with road course racing, whether it's Formula One cars or NASCAR or whatever, if anybody's heard of Watkins Glen, that's what we're making. We're going to make a road course that you can, fortunately at this particular place, you can see everything that's going on from just standing alongside of the fence because it's flat. It's not a bunch of hills like Watkins Glen or like Laguna Seca in California or any place like that where, okay, here they come and now they're going around the corner. Okay, now we're going to go, well, we're going to come back. This one here, you can see everything. And it's going to be a good place to put that type of racing in that particular field, because that's where the very first year that we put this together, we were racing there. Guess what? It's a swamp. It's incredibly wet.
Yeah.
We would have thought that the lowest field would be the wettest one. That's the driest one. The top field is the wettest one.
Lagoon.
There's a,
We understand that, but you think water runs downhill. Apparently it doesn't go anywhere when it gets to that top one.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes, sir.
you're a very engaging person, obviously we've had a number of discussions, but can I direct you just a little bit about what we'd like to hear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So some of the discussion we had previously was about you taking over the additional parcel, and the reason that's a concern of the council is because the city might then have to pay taxes on that property because it's now being used for your, snowmobile racing. So I think part of our concern was if we have to pay taxes on that, would you be willing to pay part of the taxes to make up loss that the city would now be having? And I don't know what the exact amount is. It's not a lot. But we would do it proportionally with the other people.
Are you talking about the stuff that the spray tank bought?
No, this is the property that
The Skyhawk,
yeah, Skyhawks are on.
and the amount that, the total, I think, is like
$320.
not quite $300.
That's just for the Skyhawk.
So we would proportionally ask you to pay some of the $300 some odd dollars.
Through the Michigan tax laws, if it is rented out or used for non-public purposes, for instance, then we are required to put it on the tax roll and pay property tax.
So not to
Sure.
steal your thunder, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess this is all pretty new, but
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
I'm
it's
good.
new for us.
It's new for us too.
The question we have too, there's some environmental issues out there where the top 1 foot or 8 inches layer, we cannot go through that.
Yeah.
That would be the only concern that I would have. That's
Well, Tom and I have talked before, there are structures and everything that we put together where we have to have that to run the event. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna make that so that is all removable once, right now, I'm serious, we dug a hole, and again, when the other city manager there, what was the guy's name?
Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Taylor, Thad
Yeah.
Taylor.
Thad, yep, when Thad and I were talking about it, he had called up, your lawyer people, and they said, look, as long as he doesn't move the dirt, we're good with that. So what we did is we took the dirt out of the hole, we put the hole in the hole, put dirt right back in the hole, they were good with it. But I have to take the poles out, which we did leave them in there last year, and they're still there right now. So we're gonna make this so that when we dig the hole, we're gonna put a box in the ground itself, and there's gonna be a cover over that box. So when it comes race time, I pull the 4 screws out of the cover, I put a hole in the thing, it does its job. When I get all done, I pull the pole back out, and I put the cover back on it, and the grass grows.
Great.
As long as the DEQ and the DNR and the
Yeah.
EPA are happy.
Believe me, we've been working at Town and Houghton Lake. We're very well familiar with the DNR and the DEQ and everything else that has to happen when Jimmy shows up and puts on a show. So,
if I could direct you to the
yes, sir.
next thing,
Okay.
is the alcohol resolution that we talked about. This council would have to approve the drinking of alcohol on public property. That's a resolution they would have to pass. But they're not going to do that until you have it squared away with the state and I believe the sheriffs.
Right.
So I didn't know if you'd done any movement on that.
yes, in Hastings, Michigan, at our track, that particular show is a lot like this one right here, except it's in October. We don't have a liquor license as a promotional company, so what do? You go get a nonprofit organization, which I am a Moose member, okay? So we just got the Moose Lodge there in Hastings to put this together. They got to get with the state to find out how many off-site days they can burn, because being a nonprofit thing, they can move. They don't have to be at a certain address. So they got to find out how many off-site days they got to burn, and then in that town, which is Berry County, they got to call the sheriff up and make sure it isn't Jimmy's buddy with the liquor license. Is exactly what they want to make sure.
That's where you would have to contact.
That's what we're doing. So, as a matter of fact, Mr. Manager, last night at 7 o'clock, I had a meeting with with the Sparta Moose. And I went to the Sparta Moose, I'm a Moose guy. And I went to them and said, hey, this is what I'm doing in Hastings. You guys want to do this with me in 2 Springs? So they're making the phone calls and everything and trying to find out exactly what their things, because they've, they're looking into it.
In your application for your community event, you would want to request that stuff and then have that stuff laid in place.
Correct. in mind this show is going on in 12 weeks. So I'm trying to get ahead of all this stuff and everything as we go along here. So, we've kind of put together, a layout. I don't know, did you get that with all the stuff that I sent Mike the other day?
Yeah, council has that in front of them. The only other thing I would, and you don't have to address this, I'll re-mention it, is the insurance